Shalom, this is Rabbi Michael Friedman here, creating a quick tutorial on how to use Parent Locker and Google Classroom to best support your children and learners. Parent Locker and Google Classroom do sync, and there are lots of features that make it really easy to receive communication and find student work and what homework is coming, what homework is due, what their grades are, missing work, all the types of things that students are learning to navigate and manage. Both of these apps make it easy to find as long as you know how to use them. So I'm going to show you a few of the features here, how to use those. The simplest, as you probably see in your inbox every day, is in the evening, there is an email sent home by Parent Locker telling you what is the homework due that day or the next 2 days. In this example, there is something due today. The student was supposed to have already brought this book home and done those problems here. That was posted from the math classroom. This is an example of something that is posted directly to Parent Locker, which means that the math teacher knows there's no relationship with Google Classroom for this particular class. There's just homework he's supposed to do in a regular old book. He has to do that book, bring it home, or bring it back after he brings it home and completed, and that is the homework. Now, this is homework from a class that uses Google Classroom more. It happens to be my class. And the homework was posted in Google Classroom, which means the students they're not expected to have a paper or worksheet or book brought home because the assignment itself was posted there. It could be, for some assignments, they were in fact given a paper, but if it says posted in Google Classroom, that means that paper or that worksheet is also available on Google Classroom. Comes along in these emails means that it is expected to be done either starting in school and continuing out of school or exclusively out of school as homework before that date that it says due. It might say it's due in 2 days, but anything on this email means your student very well may not have finished it and they should be completing it as homework. What can get a little more complicated is those things that were posted as assignments in the past that may or may not have the due date. Was it clear? Oh, I did that in school. We had time to do it in school. It's not as obvious. Is that homework or not homework? The best place to look for those is actually going to be on Google Classroom, so long as the teacher is using Google Classroom. On Google Classroom, when you log into the student's account, for privacy purposes, we can't actually log in, but we have some screenshots. When you log in, the top left corner, what would be right over here, has a 3-bar menu. And when you click that, you get to the to-do page. The to-do page has these 3 options. There's assigned, missing, and done. Assigned does not necessarily mean it is homework, but it means that it's something that has an upcoming due date. It should be labeled as such. For these two, it is in fact the 2 homeworks that you saw on that email. And because they have the due date of the next day, or whatever day that it was posted from then, they're going to make it to that email as homework. That due date tells you it is due. It might well be that the student had time to do it in class, but because it has a due date, you know that it is very well maybe homework as well, and that student should have evidence of having completed that or not. At no point does something that was completed, handed into the teacher during class, be listed as here having a due date. That would be posted as something else. An example of that would be like here, the section of no due date. For example, this example classwork, right? The students received this piece of paper in class. Some of them finished it, some of them might not have finished it, but I have no expectation of them completing it for homework. Therefore, there's no due date. We'll have more time in class. Additionally, it's not yet graded, because as soon as that grade goes in, well, if the graded and a due date are combined, it comes out as missing. So this example, this classwork, there was no grade put in yet, which means the teacher hasn't gotten around to grading it. There was no due date, which means the student does not have to do it for homework. It was done in class, or it's continuing to do in class. There's nothing actionable on the student's part at home. The opposite example of that would be something that is in fact missing. The example of missing work here was it was actually due a few days ago, right? That might mean that it was homework that hadn't been completed. That might mean that it was classwork that wasn't turned in, and the teacher has already graded everyone else's, and this one's lacking a grade. Because it's lacking a grade, and it wasn't turned in, and then the due date was posted, those 3 combinations flag it as missing. If you go to this section of missing work, you should be able to see all of the missing work this student has in either all classes, or you can select which classes you want to look at. If it's not listed here as missing work, certainly on a Google Classroom class, it should not really be something that is something to worry about. Anything that can be made up, anything that can be completed later on, if it was in fact missing or not turned in, whatever the case may be, should be here in missing, and this is going to be the easiest place to find that missing work. That's in the episode 2, something that was done. Right? This particular example work was graded classwork. They did it in class. It was on a paper. That student might have finished it early. They might have had to finish it for homework, whatever the situation was, but I know it has a grade. It might say missing in the sense that the teacher did not receive an online submission and there was paper, but the fact that it has a grade tells me it's not really missing, which is why it didn't flag here as missing. That red due date tells me when was it supposed to do. Being on the missing section tells me it was supposed to be done. And being over here in the done section with a grade tells me that it is not in fact missing, it is really completed. One feature that's a little bit more confusing about it. But if it's in this done section with a grade, you know the student has already done it. It may be the grade is not satisfactory. And they can have an opportunity to go back and redo that, but it doesn't get flagged as missing, which is more important in this circumstance. The last way to take a look at the grades and work is going to Parent Locker. And I want to give a quick interpretation of what some of these mean. This example homework was something that was in fact assigned yet, but it wasn't graded yet because they haven't even gotten back to class with it. That wouldn't be fair to give them a grade yet. That line tells me the due date has not yet passed, and of course, it hasn't been graded yet. Once it's graded, the grade will be inputted both in Google Classroom as well as here in Parent Locker. That's the opposite of this case here, which is the missed assignment. Now, a missed assignment in this case means that they missed the chance. For whatever reason, it was an only one-day opportunity. There's no remaking this. There's no redoing this. That actually gets a 0. That 0 tells me that the chance to redo this is done. Some teachers might have exceptions to this situation, but at this point, the basic chances to complete this assignment are finished, and the student is currently receiving a 0 for it. Versus the missing classwork, where the teacher went through all the grades and the student just didn't turn it in. There's no grade there. They didn't get a 0 on it because they didn't do it yet. It's a red exclamation point flag and says, hey, there's something over here. This hasn't been completed yet. Now, this might count as a 0 in the grade book, but it's not the same as 0, which kind of has no more chance. This is a 0, hey, let's get that in as soon as possible. This is another flag that has that. Obviously, something with a grade has been completed and has the grade submitted before. These are features that will help you kind of clarify when the student comes home and says they do or don't have class, or they do or don't have homework. What does that mean? How can we check those? How can we get on top of it? And how can we go double check that things are not missing? This helps you support the students, and looking forward to having a wonderful year of learning with tremendous Hatzlacha for everyone this year.